Hey everyone, welcome to the Greg's Garage Pod with co-host Jason Pridmore. What's up, Jason Pridmore? How you doing, man?
I'm good, dude. Just hanging out. Another busy weekend, and I'm glad that we're having the chance to do this today.
You had a last 5 or 6 days of super busy. You were at the racetrack. What went on since the last time we were talking?
We had our big event for the Unforgettables out at Chuckwalla. We did the Femwalla, it was great to have it back. They skipped a year last year, so 8th year of doing it. Greg, I did so many 2-up rides. I haven't done so many in a long time since I'm not doing the big schools anymore. So I probably gave 30 plus 2-up rides. And then Saturday, Sunday, we had one-on-ones. And then Monday, we were out there riding with a bunch of friends. And it was like the membership that they have out there is great. So when you become a motorcycle member at Chuckwalla, we have these Mondays where you can go out and ride. And it's just nobody there. So this weekend was a little bit busier. We had a big crew from the track that helps out with the track days there, the Big Heads crew. So they were all out there riding, but we had a blast. It was everybody left happy.
Well, that's awesome, man. I mean, how was the weather out there? Because I saw kind of when we were recording the podcast, there was a quote unquote secret test going on out there that didn't seem to be so secret. And I know that they got some kind of crappy weather at points, rain and all that. How did the weather hold out for you for the weekend?
It was good. For us, it was perfect. On Thursday, when those guys were testing the last day there, as I was driving down the freeway getting there, I saw the trucks leaving because it did get a little bit bad there. The rain really came down. It was flooded. It kind of flooded where all the little cabins are out there, but it drained really quickly. But by Friday, we were good. And over the weekend, we had some overcast, but temperatures were still in the 60s and perfect riding conditions. Saturday, Sunday was just absolutely beautiful. And so it was good. I heard you went up to Ohio, didn't you, on Friday? Did you go up there for the Hall of Fame?
Yeah, Friday night I went to the Hall of Fame, and it was great. You know, I got to hang out with the Haydens. The family was there, and Bill Savino from Honda, who had helped out, working out, donating some new bikes that they're raffling off for 2019. And basically, you buy a raffle tickets or whatever, and you win a chance. Or get a chance to win a CBR 1000 totally custom painted like Nicky's 06 MotoGP bike, and then they took an XR 650L and they customized it like a dirt tracker, but it's got lights on it and blinkers and stuff. It's pretty sick. So
it's great.
They saw that, and then the Nicky. It was really the Hall of Fame did it right. Nicky was the last one to be inducted into the Hall of Fame, and they had a nice video. We'll talk more about it, but it was great to see the Haydens and Roger was there and Tommy was there and Earl and Rose and Kathleen and Jenny. And so I asked them, I usually don't do this, but I asked them if we could get a photo. So we went up on stage and, I figured, look, man, when's the last time I'm going to get to stand with that whole crew? Because now that Roger's retired, when am I going to be in the same place when they're all going to be together? So,
man, he's just on his Instagram, Roger's just herding cats all the time now. Like, he's just herding cats.
Did you see the picture that they took, that he and Dana took with the cats, and that's for the Christmas card or whatever?
Oh my God, so good.
Absolutely classic.
Dana's I like following her stuff. She's got cats and Christmas trees and all that stuff, so it's fun following them. So, But hey, Raj was on the bicycle. Did you see him on the trainer? He's on the trainer playing with a cat. Like, I don't know what Raj. We're gonna have to give him a ring and have a talk. Maybe because the Bears are doing so good, his mind's not right or something.
His mind's not right. I know that he gets on the Zwift. Zwift is that new, where you can get online and race other people and stuff. And so he's actually digging it. And, this first time in years that they're not going to Orange, California after the first of the year because they don't need to be out there at their house in California and train. So Raj is like, I don't know. I go, why are you pedaling? Why not just get fat and old like everyone else? He's like, well, I'm just training for Christmas time because he's going to let himself go for a week. So we'll see.
I wouldn't be surprised to see Raj do a dirt track or something next year. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, but a different landscape for for MotoAmerica without Roger Hayden, no question.
Without any Hayden, yeah, it's going to seem strange. So but good on him. He had a good run, and now he can herd cats. So he's styling. All right, that's what he's got prepared for.
Absolutely. You want to get into this one?
Let's do it.
All right. So the first topic is what, Jay?
We're going to talk about some MotoAmerica rules, Greg, and some of the electronics issues some things that we've heard about electronics in the MotoAmerica paddock. I know you know a little bit more about it than I do, but it seems that there could be a couple things changing.
Yeah, so the rules are supposed to be out sometime today, so we don't know exactly what the rules have to say, but I know the gist of what rules are rolling out. The one that's, I think, most impactful is going to be an alternative electronic system. So at the moment, what's legal is a kit electronics. So let's say that you have a Yamaha R1 or whatever, you can buy from Yamaha or even a Kawasaki. If someone was, please race a Kawasaki ZX-10RR, you can go to Kawasaki's catalog, you can order kit electronics, which are more, have more parameters or more open than the stock electronics. The second option, which is what people consider the full-blown factory option, is the Magneti Marelli system. And in the case of, say, a Richard Stamboli on Attack, he's got the electronics that mimic what the World Superbike team has, what the factory team in the United States has, is that per our rules, he has access to that type of software. So, for instance, when we were at Laguna Seca for World Superbike, Pirelli is a completely different tire than a Dunlop, and so your electronic strategies are a little different. Richard was able to get those maps downloaded directly from, say, PATA, Yamaha's bikes. So the problem is the availability of some of these Magneti Marelli systems, the availability of some maps for certain manufacturers that don't have, say, World Superbike teams, whatever. The rules are going to come out that there's going to be an alternative system that's going to be available for purchase for other teams. So that is going to allow these other teams to really have just a system that they can get, that they're going to have better customer service, as what I'm told. They're going to have more of an open platform. So it's something that MotoAmerica, I know, has been working on for weeks and weeks and weeks. There was an article that came out talking about electronics on Road Racing World from the Roaster Chicken team, from Danny Walker, and he identified some of the problems he's had. This is not the catalyst. That the article wasn't the catalyst to get this rule change. This is something he's been working on for a long time. But Jay, the question is, we talk electronics a lot. How important are electronics these days? I mean, seems pretty critical.
Well, yeah. I mean, you see it across the board, all the way in every series around the world now. I mean, to the point where BSB has limited things as much as they can. And then you got MotoGP and World Superbike and even our series. It all comes back down to cost. I mean, the real reason why everybody's trying to limit the electronics and things is the cost. It's the people that run them that cost a lot of money. So even if you get the systems, it's getting those smart guys and the right guys to do it. I mean, gone are the days where you go to the racetrack and you just figure out a good suspension setup, find the tire you want to race on, and hope you have enough horsepower to compete. It's not about that anymore. It's all about how you get the power to the ground, how intrusive electronics can be or not. Generally, when you talk to a lot of these guys, some of the guys still want to ride more old school where they have a feel for everything. And then there's some guys that want to ride into the electronics. So you've got this sort of crossover right now of people that want to use them a lot or not use them at all. So I think it's just the electronics packages that they try to come up with, even in our series now, it's going to be something that they want to make it as adaptable as they can for these teams to be able to have a platform where it's going to be easy enough to run them, keep the cost down. But racing is expensive, and no matter what you do, even if you try to limit this stuff, there's always going to be ways around things, Greg, right? So to where people always find the advantages in one way or the other. So Electronics is just going to be another way that they're going to be doing that.
Your opinion, Jason. Electronics good, bad, indifferent?
Well, for me, I'm probably a little bit too old school to ask that, because
you could have just left the word school right off of that statement. But go ahead.
Yes, yeah. Old is definitely part of it, but I like the idea of figuring out a way to work myself into a corner by downshifting and things. Now with auto blips and all these things, they've made it easier. They've made it nicer. I mean, technology pushes along, and I like it, but I was always so much more of a feel guy that electronics to me would be something that would take time for me to really get used to. I think I've gotten a lot more used to it than I used to be, but not having the opportunity to ride real race bikes anymore and see how the electronics really are adaptable to my riding, I think it would definitely take a little bit of getting used to. And I still think that the biggest problem I find when I roll through the paddocks all over the place is riders talking about electronics and how it's, I mean, this year MotoGP, that's all we heard about with the Yamaha team. The electronics package that they had wasn't as good, they felt, as the Ducati and the Honda, and maybe Ducati and Honda found a little gray area that Yamaha wasn't privy to, and it's all about electronics. And the emphasis always, I felt, needed to be on the rider once they got a bike set up, and then it was up to us to do the job.
All right, so when you hear that bell, that means that we're going to be switching topics. But the last comment is, with MotoAmerica and these new rules, since we don't have them in hand right now. We'll take a look at them over this next week, and we'll have a more detailed conversation, I think, about the rules changes on the next podcast. So let's transition to World Superbike, Jason, because World Superbike announced yesterday, they sent out a press release about this new format. We've talked about it on the podcast before. You've had 2 World Superbike races with Superpole qualifying. Now they're going to add this 3rd race. That'll be the first race of Sunday. That's going to be a shortened race, a 10-lap race. So let me kind of sum it up for you. So what's going to happen is that World Superbike is going to go from 4 free practices down to 3 free practices. The Tissot Superpole is now going to be a 1-session format. So it's not going to be the Superpole that we've seen. That session, which I would say is more of a traditional qualifying session like we've had in years past, that's going to decide the grid for Superbike race number 1, which will be Saturday, and Sunday's sprint race, which is now called the Tissot Superpole race. That's going to be a 10-lap race. Now, what's interesting is that there is going to be points for the top 9 positions in that 10-lap race. 12 points, 9, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 allotted. Now, normal point structure is your 25, 20, 16, same as it is in GP, same as it is in MotoAmerica. So what are your thoughts about the reduced free practice time, Jay, and about this new sprint race and the fact that it means something because they're going to get 12 points if you win it?
Well, man, I think World Superbike is searching because they're trying to get more fans in the seats. They're trying to make the product that they have better. So I'm on the fence with it. 3 races is what it is. I think if you're a rider, you can't really have an opinion on it because it is what it's going to be. So it's weird seeing that those guys are going to line up on Sunday morning and do a 10-lap race. That said, I think that it gives the fans more opportunity to see the guys they've really come there to watch. But Greg, you and I've said it. They're searching for something. The race on Saturday, the race on Sunday. The old format used to be 2 on Sunday. Even Superpole's changed now. I used to like. I like the way they qualified, but this year I went to a couple of the World Superbike rounds, and the schedule was really strange. On Saturday, for argument's sake, the Superbikes were out early, like 8:30, and then within an hour and a half, Superpole 1 started. Then there was Superpole 2, and then by noon they were racing their first race. And the problem I had with it is, if somebody goes out there and crashes a bike in morning warm up at 8:30 in the morning or practice, they go straight into Superpole 1. If you crash in that one, there's no time for these teams to really get a bike together.
Especially with a one-bike
rule.
Yeah.
Which, what I think about that. I'm not a fan of that at all. And so what happens is I think it puts a lot of the teams in a little bit more pressure situations. I think it kind of, I'm not going to say it drives the cost up because they're already there and they're already racing, but it's an opportunity now for one more race for something to happen. And Sunday especially, if you have a problem in race 1, the amount of time between that one and race 2 does become an issue. So I think that there's pros and cons, and I think that once I actually get to see a full weekend of it and see what it was like, I don't really know why they don't just do a couple races for the other classes as well. I mean, the 300 class over there is so competitive and fun to watch. You could have one of those on Saturday, one of those on Sunday if you wanted to fill in some time to make it still good to watch, So yeah, we'll just see. I don't like hating on things until I get a chance to really see how it works itself out. And,
well, let's. What do you say we get an expert's opinion? Because this is a good time to bring in the guy who's sitting next to you, shoulder to shoulder. We'd like to welcome our first live guest on Greg's Garage Pod with co-host Jason Pridmore, 28-year-old factory World Superbike star Alex Lowe's. Alex, how you doing, man?
Yeah, I'm really good. Thanks to you guys for having me on the show.
Yeah, no, we're really happy to have you. So obviously you've been listening to what we're talking about, new format changes for next year, another 10 laps that you have to go at race pace. What's your opinion of the new schedule that World Superbike has come up with?
Yeah, to be honest, it's really hard to understand if it's going to be positive or negative until we get the season started and we give it a good try. But to be honest, the Friday sessions and the Superpole, I think it's going to work quite well. In the past, we had 3 shorter sessions, and you're always under a bit of pressure to be in the 10 fastest times to get into the second Superpole session and stuff like that. So it allows you to focus a bit more on the race setting on Friday. In terms of obviously we had one race on Saturday anyway last year, so that's fine. And the sprint race on Sunday, I just hope it can be great for the fans, because as a rider, if you ride at night time, ride in the morning, do a short race, do a long race, do a pit stop race, we just love racing. So the important thing is that it brings more for the fans, and them guys can enjoy it and get more involved and more passionate about superbike racing again. That's got to be the key focus.
Now, let me ask you this question, because we don't, race on Pirellis, and I don't get to see Pirellis. I've ridden on them in past, but has there been times when you've had a tire selection where you've said, if our race was only 10 laps, well, I could run this maybe softer option tire, but the fact that it's whatever many laps it's going to be, we can't. Is there that situation? And if there is that situation, is it going to be, a point when you do the sprint race where you're like, oh, I'm going to run this softer tire? And does different settings come with that?
Yeah, I think that we don't always run the softest tire for the races. So obviously having a race, I think 10 laps in if it is a set 10 laps for all the rounds, some races will be well under half. So I think sometimes we're doing 23, 24 laps. So I'm sure that the able to use softer tyres than we have used in the past. Also with the front tyres is something we normally use a lot harder one compared to the Superpole. So yeah, I think it gives the teams an opportunity to try something a bit different. And obviously we don't quite know how it's going to work yet. But personally, I think that it's sometimes a change is good, and hopefully it'll be great for everyone.
Well, Alex, since we have this time, let's go ahead and back up a little bit. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself? About your family or your brother, how you guys got racing, and then how you ended up in World Superbike on the factory Paddy Yamaha team.
Yeah, so I started like most guys. My dad was into bikes, mechanicking on bikes, and doing some track days at our local circuit, which for me, my local track in England is Cadwell Park, the famous track with the jump. So that's the first track I ever rode. Me and my twin brother Sam obviously was racing in Moto2 now. We started just by riding motocross. We used to ride around the field together. We sort of had obviously that competition from such a young age, which I think really helped us. And then we started road racing in the Aprilia Super Team Challenge in England. Was a one-make series where everybody's on the same bike, which was pretty cool. Then we moved through the British Championship, through the paddock, through the classes. And I arrived into the British Superbikes where my brother stayed in the Supersport class, and he decided to move up to World Supersport instead of moving across in the BSB paddock to Superbike, which was quite good because then we wasn't racing actually against each other anymore. So we still supported each other's racing, obviously, but we had focused on our own thing, which before then we was racing against each other and probably trying to beat each other more than beat everybody else, which I don't know if is always a positive thing.
When was the last time you guys were actually on track together? I mean, I know you go to Spain in January and stuff and you mess around. I mean, it's still got to be competitive, like even there. But when was the last time you actually were on the track together and had a crack at each other?
2010 now.
Was it? Yeah.
But that was just I did a one-off race in the British Supersport, and he was racing the full season. So, but before then was 2007.
That's
so
funny.
We haven't raced against each other actually in direct competition for a long time now. So obviously, if we did, I would win. Just to clear that up.
Yeah. Have you guys had any dust-ups on the racetrack though? And then have you guys ever come together or had any bad feelings on the racetrack? We've seen something like this with the Haydens. We've had Tommy and Nicky and Roger. Those guys race together, and I know the way they were on the track and off the track was different.
Yeah, to be honest, having a twin that races is quite positive because you learn to try to beat the person on the track, and then when you get off the track, you have to get on, obviously, and we get on really well. So I think that's a good attribute to have in our sport. But I remember when I was on 125s back in 2005, and I always used to beat Sam when we first started. I was a bit of a quicker learner than him. He was slowly getting faster, and I remember one race at Cadwell Park, he passed me, and I was thinking, I'm struggling to stay with him today, so I just let the brakes off and gave him a little nudge out the way. So that's one way to deal with it.
That's awesome. Yeah. So good. I mean, for those that don't know, I've never actually ridden there, but when you said Cadwell was your first track, I thought, well, that's got to be an interesting place with the jump it there. But it's incredibly narrow, isn't it?
Yeah, really narrow, really tight, with lots of changes of camber, some uphills. But yeah, it's a fantastic track to ride for me because it's where I grew up. When a lot of people go there for the first time, it's quite daunting. So
I bet
it's a great place.
I don't know, 125, just letting off the brake and running into your brother.
Yeah, knocking him off.
Did you actually knock him off?
Yeah, it was off.
You did?
It was spinning around in the grass. I didn't have to worry about it to go back to the van.
That was the end of him.
Okay, yeah, okay, that's great. But what was it like afterward? Like
after, what was going on there?
Yeah, it was fine because he was scared of me when we was younger. So he was trying to explain to my dad that he just lost the front.
You're the bully.
Yeah, but the best thing was that was also the first time that the new era of social media and the internet really didn't help me, because maybe 18 months later, somebody had caught the whole sequence with photographs, and they popped up on Facebook. So.
And then your dad realized he didn't lose the front.
Yeah, my dad realized it was my fault, but look back then.
Was he paying for racing at that point?
He was paying for racing at that point, but because it was
a
long enough time after, it had calmed down a bit, so it's fine.
I think having somebody like your brother pushing you, I've gotten to know you fairly well now over the last 6-8 months, and it's great how close you guys are, because it's funny when I hear you talk about Sam. You can see you guys, and I'm sure he's the same with you. It's like you almost idolize him a bit. You've seen him go down a different path than what you've gone down, and even when you talked to me the other day about him winning in Jerez, the photo you have of him on your phone and the story that you tell about it, you're just really wrapped up in him still, which is great.
Yeah, it's great, and we're completely different people. Anybody that knows us, we really are opposites. So there's a lot of things that I've learned the hard way in racing, and I'm sure that he's learned, and we can help each other. So I feel like we're in quite a lucky position with that. But yeah, back to the main question. I moved from the BSB paddock into World Superbikes with the Crescent Suzuki team, which is run by Paul Denning. And then, to be honest, I've actually stayed with the same team for the next 4 or 5 years, but they've obviously received the factory support from Yamaha when they returned to the series. So yeah, I've been lucky enough to arrive in a factory position on World Superbike, and it's going okay, but obviously we always want to do a bit better.
When you came from BSB after winning the championship in 2013, this is something that I really remember. And Crescent back then was Suzuki. It was Crescent Suzuki team, and I remember you going to Phillip Island and being so fast right away, and everybody kind of thought, wait a minute, like Alex is just going to come in and dominate things. And it's weird how as life goes on, you can look back at things, and I remember that weekend and how fast you were. Never been to Phillip Island. Did you do the preseason test there a week prior?
Yeah, I was
there. They still did it then, right?
Quickest in the test, quickest in the practice, and then, looking back, I was, I didn't approach I was just trying to go fast and trying to beat everybody, and then I crashed in the fourth practice session and broke my tibia. So
that was the end of that.
That's one way to learn. Do it wrong, end up in the hospital, and I think, maybe I should have gone a bit slower.
But I think that you after you look at 2013 and the battle that came all the way down to the last race, I was actually lucky enough to be at Brands, even though I didn't know you then. I watched those races, and you were on the Honda, and it kind of is a mentality thing that shows that you come from winning a championship, you go right to the world stage. All of a sudden, it had to be weird being 6 years younger than you are now. What were you, probably 22 then, I guess?
23 when I came up.
23 when you came in. And you just go to Phillip Island, and you had to really felt like, I'm BSB champion, I got to come here and show myself. And you did that. And then to end up, what would you have done differently that weekend? Looking back now, is there something that you could have done differently if you could have?
You can't say that in racing, because I wouldn't. We can always say, if I knew, if what I know now, if I knew it then, I'd have done this different. But I've never really had real good advice and good riding advice or people around me. I've just wanted to go fast and try and beat everybody. And when I came to World Superbike, I obviously believed I could be at the front, and I was fast enough. I was fast in all the testing. I didn't really have enough experience on the tracks, and I was just trying to ride a little bit too hard. But the worst thing when I came to World Superbike, them first 2 or 3 years was quite depressing for me, because in World Superbike at the time, you're racing against world level riders on world level bikes and teams, and what I noticed is it's in BSB with the rules that I had. On a Sunday, you could always make a little bit of difference, and in World Superbike, if you try to make a bit of difference and override the bike, it's not going to happen. You're going to crash. So I had a tough few years trying to learn that, and just trying to be smart, be a bit smart about how you conduct the practice sessions, take a step back, and it was, to be honest, it's made me the rider I am now. So it's ended up working quite well.
And when you talk about it, the big difference, I think, is just rules packages between the bikes from BSB to World Superbike.
Yeah.
Getting used to that, I think, as a rider is something that is difficult, because when you come in as a 23-year-old guy that's coming into World Superbike for your first time, I think the thing that gets lost is, even though we've gotten used to winning and we've just won a Superbike championship, now you're racing against guys that are seasoned and they've been to all these tracks and they've done some of the stuff. And I think, was that second year for Crescent, or was that first year for Crescent for the team?
They had already been in the 1 year.
For 1 year with the Suzuki.
Yeah.
So they had a little bit of information, but now they've got a young guy that's come in, jump brands.
Yeah.
And I think that, like what you just said there, it's the approach to how you go about things. And even now, the approach will be something that'll be key for you going into 2019 as well.
Yeah, and I think the worst thing was, after I injured my leg, I tried to race, and then we got the third round in Aston. I nearly won the race. I finished second behind Johnny. So then I had quite a little bit of success straight away. Then I had another podium at Donington. So then I thought, oh yeah, this is going to be fine. And we didn't really move forward from that with the Suzuki. I don't know, lots of different reasons. So the bike wasn't the newest bike either in the class. And I had a tendency to push it a little bit too hard. But I'm completely fine. I always tried my best, and I learned a lot. And from that point to now, I've learned a lot. How to work with the team, how to control your expectations. And like you just pointed on, it's something that I need to do even better next year to keep making steps forward.
Well, let's talk about your 2018 then, Alex. Like, kind of sum it up for us in terms of how you felt 2018 went for you.
Yeah, 2018 was, for me, in general, quite frustrating. 2017, I think I had a really solid year. I finished 5th in the championship, but I feel like I got a lot out of the bike, a lot out of the package. I don't think I could have done much better. This year, I feel like I've rode better, but in general, some of the results have been a little bit worse. Obviously, I won my first World Superbike race at Brno, which was great, but I also had 2 or 3 more frustrating weekends where me and the team and the guys, we didn't quite get the bike working how I needed it to be, and then I made a couple of mistakes myself as well. So I'd say it's been a year that was okay, but I need to try and eliminate some of them mistakes from my side and also from the team side moving into 2019 to make it a little bit better. That's my targets.
And how is your... Sorry, Jay. I didn't mean to jump on you, but how is your mindset going into 2019? And I ask that because, like, what from a mental standpoint, when you look across the paddock at that Kawasaki, that number 1 plate that's been on there for so many years, mentally, how do you prepare yourself to go tackle that, knowing that they have an Evolution bike, and you've been out there and seen it test, and your bike seems to be kind of stuck in like as a 4-year-old motorcycle. Is it weighing on you at all? Like, what's the mental approach heading into 19, looking at that?
Nah, it doesn't weigh on me at all, to be honest. I've raced against Jonathan Ray since we arrived in the paddock, and the first year I was there, he was on the Honda, I was on the Suzuki, and I actually had quite a lot of really good battles with him. But his bike can be as good as he wants. I've still got a lot of admiration for how he's riding the bike. There's a lot of things he's doing on the bike that he's doing really well. So I can't change how competitive my bike's going to be, but all I can do is try to improve myself, improve my riding, which I can always do. And I've got a few key areas I've been working with Jason on, to be honest, that we can improve.
Jason who?
And Jason who?
Thanks, Gino.
This guy sat next to me.
Oh, is my mic on? I'm sorry. Is my mic on? I didn't know. I'm sorry. I thought I muted myself.
He used to go quite fast in the 80s, I think. So.
Nice.
Yeah, also
1960. Go ahead.
Yeah. Also, next year we have 2 more official or supported Yamahas on the grid. So the target for me is quite simple, really, to be the top Yamaha. And I don't look at Johnny Ray and them having a new bike as any less motivation for me. I feel like I'm riding the best I've ever ridden, and I want to make next year my best one yet.
Cool.
I think the 3 race format will be interesting, Greg, because with that 10-lap race, it's going to bring a lot more people in for 10 laps. Like you asked the question very early about the tires and how that might change the selection of what you do. When you do your race runs, Alex, when you do those long practices during the weekend, that will be something that will really help you determine the strategies. Because the fact that 10-lap race does pay points could be pivotal. It could be a difference. It could be a difference maker. It could put pressure on people in a little different way. Qualifying is going to be so key, especially for that 10-lapper.
Well, additionally, Jason, what I didn't get to mention was is however you finish in that 10-lap race will set the grid for race number 2.
Race 3.
Yeah, race 3, yeah. Full length World
yeah.
Superbike race number 2. Exactly. So there's that added bit to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, to be honest, it like I say, you have to adapt to the new rules whenever they change. I remember way back in the BSB championship in the series when they was going to go to the Evo rules, they were called to start with, and then they became the what's now the full BSB rules. Even that had a lot of negative press around it at the time, but as years gone on, it's been really successful, and everyone sort of forgot that.
Yep.
So whenever there's a rule change, I try and approach it with as much optimism as I can, and I think that for me personally, being such a good qualifier, I think that we can use it to our advantage for next year.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree. One of the things when we talk
in
about,
fact, it'd be good for Jason. A little 10-lapper. You
I don't even think I could do 10 laps.
You'd be fine.
I don't think I could.
Oh, wait a second, Alex. Did you just throw that out there? Did you just throw that out there?
Nice,
did you just say, "Hey, Jason Pridmore, why don't you come out of retirement and give a 10-lapper a go?"
I've just seen him on the weekend putting some hot laps in, so I think there's might be some opportunities next year.
You know what? No, hold on a second. Now, I heard a rumor. Alex, I want you to confirm this for me. I heard that Pridmore actually got to ride your brother's old Moto2 bike at Chuckwalla over the weekend. True or false?
True.
And how did he look from? I mean, Chuckwalla, you can see a lot of the track, but how did he look from your perspective?
Honestly, he looked slightly large on the bike.
Yeah, I was waiting for that one. That's good. Hey.
Yeah, to be honest, it's the Moto2 class and the chassis are like full racing chassis. Jason will tell you more in a minute, but he was just going to go out and do a couple of laps to experience the feeling on the bike, and it was quite nice for me to watch him because obviously it was my brother's bike, which he won couple of Grand Prix on. So he was meant to do a couple of laps. I think 10 laps later, we finally got him into pit lane with a big smile on his face. So I think it went quite well.
It was great. It was so fun. And, I was laughing great because I was thinking to myself, I'm with Alex riding Sam's bike at Chuckwalla, which 5 years ago or 10 years ago, who would ever even, thought. It's weird how this community can get brought together so quickly. And our friend Gnome is actually the one who owns the bike, and he was kind enough to let me go spin some laps on it, and it was a treat because in no uncertain way, the hardest thing for me to get used to on the bike I'm racing at Phillip Island is it's a special chassis, and I got on the Moto2 bike and it was very similar to that same feel. Like we talked about last week, it doesn't move, it doesn't do anything that makes you think you're on the edge, and I think that would take some getting used to, but I got to do a handful of laps on it, and it was a lot of fun. And Alex was good because he rode with all my friends out there, and we got to do some laps together as well, obviously. And it was just a really fun Monday, actually.
Well, that's cool. And with that talking point, actually, let's transition. I'm going to go back to Alex and talk about the fact that you race a production series. Ultimately, it's a production-based motorcycle, but you have dipped your toe into MotoGP a couple of times. So what's your perspective on being able to bounce back and forth to a production-based motorcycle to a purpose-built razor edge, race-focused motorcycle?
Yeah, I'm quite lucky because I've rode sort of all variations of the R1, the R1M, the R1 World Superbike, and also in 2016 the M1 on the MotoGP. I rode it at Brno. Was actually the first time I got a bit of taste of the MotoGP action. I got a 10-lap sort of thank you for winning the Suzuka 8 Hours that year. And I remember leaving the pit lane and I couldn't physically believe the difference between the World Superbike and the MotoGP bike. But it wasn't the things that you'd expect, more like the brakes with the carbon disc were something that I really noticed straight away. The seamless shift gearbox was just something that I couldn't even believe I was changing gears. It was that smooth. It was ridiculous how fast and how easy it was to change gear. And I'd say that sort of thing was more impressive to me than the speed of the bike. Street bikes now, they're so fast. And when I see these standard street bikes and I try to explain to guys on track days that maybe haven't experienced a race bike, they don't quite believe how close they are to the World Superbike.
Yeah, we say this all the time. Like when you look at what a production bike does compared to like your World Superbike, it's so minimal now. Like, and they're so good. When you jumped on the MotoGP bike, it's kind of been my thing where I've felt like when you look at how quick guys get up to speed, and right now we can look at like Pecco Bagnaia or even Rins last year. It seems to me, and I could be wrong, so please tell me if I am, but when you got on the MotoGP bike, even at Brno, you said that within like your third lap or something, you were just 2.5 seconds off of what like fastest of the weekend was. Are they kind of easy to ride, but then you have to kind of gain the trust in the electronics and what you can get away with on those bikes compared to what you're used to riding, or what?
Yeah, to sum it up perfectly, I would say that they're easy to ride and hard to ride really fast.
Got it.
You know, when you're trying to get that last second, the last half a second, you have to, because it's understanding the tyres and the brakes and the power, and because they've got so much power now, people believe that you can just go into the corner, open the throttle and sit on the electronics. Where in MotoGP, with that much power, you can't really do that, because the whole aim, obviously, is to use the power you've got, get off the electronics in the straight, get the bike driving, use the, all the guys, they're not just opening the throttle and seeing what happens. So I think that trying to really, everything comes into it when you're riding a MotoGP bike. Your body position's got to be right. Every input that you do on the bike is magnified compared to a World Superbike. You need to be smooth. You can't afford to change direction too aggressive with your body. It upsets the whole chassis, like you said about the Moto2 bike, a stiffer chassis. And then
that's right. Yeah.
When you touch the gas, if you're a bit aggressive, you make the bike spin and it wheelies. So I think the last part, you have to sort of, a word that we use all the time is be patient. And if you're going really fast on a MotoGP bike, you have to understand exactly how you need to ride it and be patient and let the bike do what it needs to do. Within World Superbike, you get away being slightly more aggressive, I think.
I think the bikes, or the production bikes, like when you say World Superbike and the R1 itself, that when you rode the MotoGP bike, and I know it's been a few years, but one of the things I think is really interesting is a production World Superbike or whatever we ride now, you have that little bit of movement when you're going from off throttle, doing your downshifts, getting into a corner. On the Moto2 bike, I never felt that. And on the MotoGP bike, is it kind of like that as well, where you just feel like the bike kind of goes where you want it to go?
Yeah, and I think the reason what you see with a lot of rookies go really fast immediately, then they start making a few mistakes and they sort of knocks them back a level. That's sort of a theme that we've seen quite a lot. And I think it's because you don't feel like anything's going to happen until something does happen.
Right.
And then obviously you crash and you don't quite understand why. Whereas in World Superbike, normally if you do have a crash, especially on the Pirelli tyres, you know exactly what you've done. You've gone in too fast, or you've got a lot more feeling, where in MotoGP you don't get that. So you need to be really understanding what's going on before you can crash and it not affect your confidence too much.
Yeah. And I think that one of the things, that really is a teller in what you just said is, Greg mentioned earlier, we talked about the Suzuka 8-hour and you won it in 2016 and got that as kind of a treat to go ride the MotoGP bike. Yeah. We've won 3 of those. I mean, the Suzuka 8-hour is the most prestigious sort of endurance race in the world. They talk about the classic 24 hours and things, but if you win the Suzuka 8-hour, it's a big thing. And I know that the bike that you ride at the 8-hour is a little bit different than the bike that you ride in World Superbike. And when you talk about the bike over there, you're riding on Bridgestones, obviously. Go back to World Superbike and you're on the Pirellis. One thing that just caught my attention when you're talking about Pirelli specifically, tell us a little bit about, obviously you won it again this year, so congrats on that.
Thank you.
Is that third one in a row?
Third one, yeah.
Third one in a row, though. Like, not just won 3. How many times have you done it?
4.
Who slacked you off the first year then?
No, to be honest, people forget, but the first year was my first ever time there on the Suzuki.
Yeah.
I was with Suda-san, the Japanese test rider for Suzuki. And the first ever Suzuki 8-hour, I did the run across the track and I led for the first hour in front of, I think, Nakasuga was on the Yamaha at that time. And then when Suda rode the bike, he crashed. So we crashed quite early in the race and we lost about 10, 11 laps and we got our way back up to 5th place, I think.
Yeah, you got 5th.
I'll make my way back to Greg's a stat guy. He'll know everything that's going on, I promise. But the thing is that we'll get back to the Pirelli Bridgestone. Tell people what it's like when you're used to doing regular starts your entire life, and all of a sudden now you got to run across the track. You do 2 warm-up laps, right? You do 2 warm-up laps, and you park the bike.
Yep.
And the build-up is interesting.
Hold on. Before you answer that, Alex, do you run like a normal person, or do you hobble step like Broken Jason?
No, he's got good legs.
Oh, good legs.
Okay. Yeah, I still managed to run okay.
Oh, okay. All right. Sorry. Go ahead, continue. I've just seen Jason try to run for a bike before, and it's pretty sad.
Yeah, you lose the race right there. Just
I would. I'd get run over. I wouldn't make it across quick enough. But no, I try to explain to people it's such a different type of build-up, isn't it?
Yeah, I've got a funny story actually.
Yep.
So, I think you know him anyway, Jason, but Fujio of Yoshimura from the Yoshimura team.
Yep.
He was saying to me, so Alexander, tomorrow we want you to start the race, which I never expected because it was my first Suzuka 8-hour. Normally the Japanese guy with all the experience is going to start the race. So then after that, we had to have a 1-hour meeting about how to do the start because they're so worried that you're going to make a mistake or not understand the procedure. And then you've got the language barrier between Japanese and English. So, yeah, it took a long time, but I didn't really want to do it. I was with Glenn Richards, who was my assistant back then, who Jason knows really well. And I was saying, I was so nervous in the hotel the night before. Probably the most nervous I've been before a race because I felt a lot of pressure and I wasn't really sure what to do. So you're always going to feel more pressure when you don't know what to do.
Yeah.
So, I remember just going off the start, running to the bike, and I was nervous that it wasn't going to start, but it started fine, and I went away. And then I was second, I think, and I passed, I think Kianari was in front of me, and I passed Kia. And I came around the tight little chicane, coming onto the start and finish straight, and you come down, and it was like a surreal experience because I was leading in the first lap of my first ever Suzuka 8 hours. There was about 70 pit boards hanging out down the pit wall, so I had no chance of seeing the pit board. And I just, first time, and one of the only times you really see the crowd, there's so many flags, and the grandstand on the left was so full. I remember thinking, there's only 7 hours and 59 minutes to go. So
no,
at least I've led one lap. So it's a actually that memory was something I remember for a long time. It's quite a special moment for me, really.
Yeah, and Suzuka to me always had that feel to it where you really felt like racing motorcycles was something special there, especially right. Even going back and just staying at the Suzuka Circuit Hotel and all that stuff is a neat thing. So going back real quick, that during the season, Greg, these guys that are the World Superbike guys that get contracted to go do the 8-hour, within their regular duties of being there on their race weekends, they've got to fly back and forth to Japan, sort of come May, June, when you start really testing over there a lot. And they're kind of tests that sometimes we hear a lot about, sometimes we don't hear a lot about. But you're on the bike you're on a Suzuka 8-hour bike quite a bit before you actually get there for the event.
Yep.
And
well, you say quite a bit. We fly all the way over to Japan from wherever we are in Europe at the time to do the testing, and it's a strange how the Japanese organise the test. It's quite strange. So there'll be me and Michael, and then Nakasuga-san, who's there for he's always there riding for Yamaha. He does also the MotoGP testing, the R1 street. So he's a full Yamaha guy, and we'll go to a test. There'll be one bike for him, and then me and Michael sharing the other bike. We only coming over for a couple of days, so you thought it'd be the opposite, try and get more laps in.
Yep.
So sometimes if it's a bit of dodgy weather, we go all the way there for a test, and maybe you'll do 20 laps a day, 25 laps a day. So
that's crazy.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy. But to be honest, that bike works so well over there. It's a privilege to ride it. If I could choose one bike, so far in my career anyway, to just have in the garage, it wouldn't be the M1, it would be the 2000 and this year's Suzuka 8-hour bike.
Yeah.
It's the way everything was working was fantastic.
And one of the things is when you start talking about that bike, it's got different electronics than what you run. It's got different tires. Yeah. And tell people how there's a definite transition. How it's a difficult transition because you've gone from something that you're used to riding all the time on a certain brand of tire, and now you go to the 8-hour, and all that gets kind of switched up. Yeah,
I'm actually not allowed to contractually make a comparison with the tires. But obviously the thing in World Superbike is it's great. Everyone's on the same tires, which is something I really like, and you've all got the same opportunity to choose whichever tire you want for the races. So when we go to Japan and we use the Bridgestones, we everyone can use whatever tires they want. I believe in World Endurance. So
that's right.
So we have we use the Bridgestones, and for me the biggest strong point is a tire that I really love is the front tire on the Bridgestone. It's such a nice tire to ride. It gives you so much confidence, especially when you're entering the corner and trail braking into a corner. It's quite a strong tire with quite a lot of grip, and it seems to stay consistent for so many laps. This combined with how the Yamaha works, just the strongest part of the Yamaha is its turning, especially on longer corners, especially when you can load the front. And if you put them two together and the track at Suzuka with so many long, beautiful corners like Jason, it's sort of a match made in heaven, which what makes riding that bike at that track so fun.
It's one of my favorite tracks. It's Suzuka's is a good one, Greg, because it's got a lot of kind of what we think our sport's all about. It's fast, a lot of really neat third gear behind the paddock there before you go into Dunlop are like 4 or 5 of my favorite turns that I do. And for sure, when we talk about the differences, it's not to say what tire is better than the other. It's just a different characteristic that you're used to feeling,
a different characteristic. And if you can imagine the same bike, if you use different tires to really maximize the performance, surely you have to ride in a little bit of a different way. So I believe that the more corner speed on the Bridgestones is sort of the best way to ride them, and I think that's why it suits the Yamaha so well.
Yeah, because you definitely could see that there wasn't as big a gap between the Kawasaki and the Yamaha during the race when I was watching it. Between, Johnny and Leon were on the Kawasaki, obviously you and Michael on the Yamaha, and boy, it was really close over the course of an hour. The lap times were exactly the same, and it really did come down to putting pressure on the boys in the pits and getting that right. So
and then we go to Mainico the week after, and I can't get within a second in the qualification.
Well, that
must be the rider.
It must be the rider. It's got to be the rider. So, do you think too that the fact that Yamaha is, and when they're developing a new motorcycle over there, that a lot of the development happens on the Bridgestones, doesn't it?
Yeah. The clear thing is obviously, I'm in such a privileged position to be invited by the factory to go there and represent them in the race, which is something I'm really thankful for. But to Yamaha in Japan, they're a lot of their focus from the production side is on the Suzuka 8-hour race. And their focus after that is on the MotoGP. But the MotoGP is a top thing. In terms of production, they focus on the Suzuka 8-hour. So it's hard to get, when you're there, you feel a long way away from Europe, and it's hard to get them to truly understand not just the level in World Superbike, but also the development needed over there with sort of them tires, them rules to push the project forward. And I've been really lucky. There's more support coming to the World Superbike team, and we are making steps forward. But it feels like every time we jump forward a step, the other guys are jumping forward a step again. So, the MotoGP project this year, it's not really a secret that they feel like they've struggled a lot more than previous years. So at the moment, a lot of their focus has to be on that and returning them back to winning, because then that would then naturally filter down into World Superbike, into other areas of Yamaha's racing program.
Now, to touch on that tire development thing you're talking about, there was an interview with Midori Moriwaki, who is now part of that program World Superbike Honda effort. And one of the things that she noted was that 2 years ago in the All Japan Road Race Series, she decided to switch the team to Pirellis, and with the idea of coming to World Superbike. So critically important as we continue to see it on down the road. We've seen it with MotoGP when it was Bridgestone, and then that year that you rode, that first year of Michelin. I was kind of thinking when you were telling me the story that it's kind of a transition year for riders and for actual factories on developing the bike around the tires. It's very critical, but it was good for Midori Moriwaki now getting into World Superbike to have 2 years of development in Japan. So when they get to the World Superbike paddock, they're not taking a Bridgestone developed bike into Pirellis. They actually have 2 years of experience. And so I you tell me, but I'm kind of reading between the lines in what you're saying, that what Mori Midoriwaki has done 2 years ago till now is really going to pay off by the time they get to the World Superbike paddock and get their first test in a few weeks or months or whatever.
Yeah, and I think it has to. I think, we look at the Japanese engineers and the stuff that they've done, and they're some of the best people in the world for developing bikes. It's what they know, and obviously you've got the Ducati side in Italy from the World Super. They obviously run in World Superbike and MotoGP, but I think from my personal experience, this year at the start of this year we started using the electronic software from Japan, and the corner entry system is fantastic. We've not had any problems with the corner entry, but on the exit we've been struggling a little bit more to find a really good setup, and not going into the tyres too much, but personally I think it's because on the exit I think the rear tyres are working in so much of a different way. A lot of the settings haven't really worked. We've had to start again from square one to find a setting that works for our bike on the World Superbike track. So it's certainly a good thing if you can be developing the system from the start with Pirelli tyres, but obviously not everybody has that opportunity.
Well, that's what Kawi does, right? I mean, basically all of their development goes right through the factory Kawasaki team. All the development of the Kawasaki ZX-10 and the things that they do, Greg, I think goes right through Johnny Ray's team. So, they're developing their bike on the Pirellis full stop all the time.
Yeah, and I believe that Leon Haslam's a good friend of mine who's obviously back in World Superbike next year. I know last winter he was in Japan a lot testing the Kawasaki. So,
and he's been on the Pirellis over in BSB.
Yep.
Correct. So that's also, I feel for him, that'll be a pretty easy transition, I would think, getting on from one to the other.
Yeah. So it even shows more of what a stud you are, jumping from tire brand to tire brand to different types of motorcycles. I mean, it's not as easy as people think it is it?
Not really, but when you jump on the factory 8-hour bike, you certainly got an advantage before you leave pit lane. So not just me.
But when you leave the pits, your first test going into, because are you planning on doing the 8-hour again this year?
Yeah, I'm not sure at the moment, but
you'd like to, or you would.
I'd like to. Yeah.
But when you leave the pits, leaving there, you definitely feel like you kind of like the bike instills a lot of confidence in you.
Honestly, it's a strange thing to say, but whenever I go there and you're riding for the factory, it's a nice place to sit in the back of the garage and just think, I've come a long way since helping my dad down the quarry pulling electric cables in. I'm now in Japan representing the factory Yamaha team, and the way the bike is, how the bike's prepared, it really is a full factory effort. And like I said, like I've mentioned, it's a privilege to be part of that. And hopefully next year I get asked back and we can try and win it again.
And you got to take the rock. You take the rock with you over there.
I've got this. My assistant Rocky, he'll come with me.
He's the best guy ever. You love him.
He's just he's a guy that used to train with me when used to be a professional boxer. So he's training with me for his physical training. We became friends. When he retired, he sort of jumped on with me to help me and come around with me around the world. And it makes me laugh because I go out to do my practice sessions and I'll just come back into pit lane and I'll be sat talking to the head guys at Yamaha, no idea who they are, just chatting to them like that. That's
great.
And I think they love it as much as he does, really. So it's quite
I'm curious about the 8-hour, Alex, in terms of setup, because you have three people, different sizes, maybe different riding styles, sharing the same motorcycle. Ever any conflicts arise in terms of what you want, or do you just go in with the mindset of I'll ride whatever they give me?
Yeah, you have to have that mindset in endurance racing. Jason would tell you. I'm sure he's been in the same position in the longer endurance races that he's done. But for me, when I've rode at Suzuka, we've had 3 riders: me and Michael van der Mark, my teammate from World Superbike, and Nakasuga. And my height and my body position is sort of in the middle of them guys. So for Michael, I think it's quite difficult because he's a little bit taller. But for me, everything seems to fit me quite well. And this year, Nakasuga-san got injured in the practice, so we just did the race between me and Michael. We changed the sort of handlebar position more to suit him, and it was fine for me again. So this year we had a probably slightly easier setup in terms of the handlebar position. The way we ride the bike, strangely enough, is all quite similar, and the settings work for us all. So I think there's on the switch on the map, I run a slightly different engine brake map for when I get on the bike, so I have to remember to press that during the stints. Apart from that, it works really well, and we don't find too much problem with the compromise setting.
Yeah, and that's really what endurance racing becomes. When you have a teammate, you have to have a compromise. Yeah. You're not always going to get the best bike. It's funny you talk about switching engine maps. I always used to like to run my brake lever really far out there because I like that. So when I'd be pulling in the pits, I'd always be winding it back in so that when they got on it, or we'd remind each other, hey, don't forget to do the brake. So it's a constant compromise. And I think that's what makes it
so fun.
Makes it so fun because it really is a team thing. You're not really racing against, obviously, Michael. From an ego standpoint, we all want to do the fastest lap on the team still. But once you're in the race,
which I've managed to do last week.
Yeah, it's nice you mentioned that. It's good.
Well done,
about
you.
Egos or nothing here. No egos here. No, but the thing is that what it does is you almost. I always felt like I had a responsibility to get the bike back to my teammate. It's the best you could, and so there were times because if you watch the Suzuka 8-hour this year, and Greg, I stayed up for 8 hours, right? Almost. At the last 40 minutes, I couldn't keep my eyes open anymore because it was 4:00 in the morning or whatever it was here.
I NASCAR raced it, Jason. It's meaning I watched the beginning, I went to sleep in the middle, and then I had to watch the last hour. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Well, I think the thing is, though, is it's the racing is now the difference now between what it was even back when I did it. Although the last 4 years I did it, those hour stints, they're full on. Yeah. There's no like riding around at 85%.
Nah.
But when you're carving up through guys at Suzuka, there always comes that point where you're coming into one of the chicanes or the hairpin or whatever where. Yeah. In a sprint race, you wouldn't even think twice. But in the endurance race, you got to think, well, I got to get this bike back, don't you?
Yeah, for sure. And, this year, there's just me and Michael. Obviously, I race against him every weekend. But we actually have a great relationship. And he rode so well this year. And there was a stint that was raining a little bit dry. And he had slick tyres on. And he did a fantastic job, to be honest, and really helped us with the race this year. And he was not more of a risk taker than me, but he's probably less. What's the nice way to say it? Less polite in traffic than I am.
Yeah.
And I always try.
We say aggressive. Aggressive.
Yeah, he's aggressive, but I can be aggressive. But the way I approach the endurance race is I'd rather lose 2 or 3 tenths in a particular sector, and not go for a pass that I can't really do, run wide off the track maybe, or maybe tag someone and lose a second and a half. So I try to, and if I have had a slow sector where I've had to let someone, had to wait behind someone in a corner, I try and then when I do get clear track, push on a little bit to get that time back. I try to be as sensible as I can when we're riding bikes with there actually is quite a lot of people on track.
Well, what you don't know, and Greg, it's kind of like the Daytona 200. You get those guys that don't race all year long, and then they go do the Daytona 200. There's if you've got 60 bikes on the grid, you've got 25 that race once a year. It seems like so you do have a lot of slower guys.
I have been down that road, Jay. Remember, I do have a national championship in Weira Endurance.
Don't even.
Which makes me think about this. Hold on, it makes me think about this. Was Melissa Paris out at Chuckwalla over the weekend?
Did
you get to meet her, Alex?
Yep.
Melissa, Josh Hayes' wife.
Yeah, I know Josh obviously, and I've met Melissa.
All right, so you know how big she is, or how small she is.
She's small.
All right, so I'm 6 foot. Almost 6'3", and at the 2007, I was about 200 pounds, and we raced.
No, well, hold on. 2007. What are we tipping the scales at now? Don't lie, because I know
more than 200, but I'm working it off. Are you settled down? I'm not telling you my weight. How dare you ask? You never ask a lady her weight. How could you?
Yeah, 207. He
2007, I was 200, around 198, 200 pounds. The point is, Melissa and I endurance raced a CBR 600 RR during that time. So the setup I was about 100 pounds heavier than her, and the setup was it had to go right in the middle. Like I rode it the whole season with, as I got on the brakes, I would just have to bottom out the front forks because we couldn't find a fork spring that would allow her to get any movement on the front end. So I literally just rode it off the bottom and let the Dunlop just bounce around. It was fun though. It was
thanks for the great racing history, G-Dub. I wish we had video of it, to be honest.
I now feel more qualified.
No, don't you? Don't you feel like what that little bit of information you got? Think about that next year when you're at the 8 hour. You can say, well, you know what? This is what Greg White did when he raced with Melissa.
Anytime in the future where I leave pit lane with a teammate and think, oh, these front forks are a bit soft.
Yeah,
I'm going to think they're not as bad as what you had to deal with.
Greg had to deal with this. Greg, that was an inspirational story.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was just going through a tunnel. You guys were breaking up. Were you just talking for a minute? I didn't hear anything.
That's really
Are you guys holding hands
really
now? Because it's very funny.
Not yet.
It's funny.
No,
are we going to move on with this interview? So anyway, Alex, tell us about your time in the States. Why are you here? And tell us about your experience over the weekend.
Yeah, so obviously it's my we test right up until the end of November, getting stuff ready for next year and trying some new parts on the bike in Jerez, which was pretty cool. It went quite well, really well actually. And then for the first couple of weeks in December, I normally like to take a bit of time off, switch off from racing. But this year, obviously Jason's been out to help me. He started helping me at Laguna. He's been to a couple of the races in Portugal and mainly car, and sort of invited me over to stay with him for a few days in December. We're both into golf, which, some people, it's a long way from racing bikes, basically.
It is.
So it's a different crowd, but I'm going to come over and play some golf, and it just sort of managed that he was heading out to Chuckwalla, and Yamaha gave me a standard bike, and I managed to spin a few laps with some of his friends. So that was pretty awesome, because it's not like when I ride every weekend and you're trying to go fast, and then no matter how well you ride, you've got to ride a bit quicker.
Yep.
I was able just to enjoy myself on the weekend, do a few laps, meet a lot of cool people, and now we're going to play a bit of golf. My wife got into town yesterday, so I need to put get some brownie points off her and go shopping, I suppose. But yeah, so I'm just basically hanging out and enjoying some sunshine in December rather than rain every day back in England.
One of the things too, sorry, Greg, and you and I talked about this last week, Greg. Alex just got done riding with Lewis Hamilton in Jerez, and Lewis was at Chuckwalla last year.
Yeah.
So it's funny how those things all kind of connect together. What did you think of Chuckwalla? What was it like riding with Lewis and that kind of thing? I guess those kind of go hand in hand a little.
Yeah, I like Chuckwalla. I think it was it's a great place. You're out there in the desert a bit. You feel quite a distance from anywhere, which is quite relaxing, and I quite enjoyed that. And it's just a racetrack, and the fact that you can run the track both ways is pretty cool. And I think it's a good track to be able to go and just ride. So riding with Hamilton was good. He's got he's got such a passion for two wheels, which is obviously real nice. Nice for us two wheel guys to hear. So that was a lot of fun and great to meet him as well. It was a great.
Did you have a favorite direction around Chuckwalla, clockwise or counterclockwise?
Yeah, clockwise I preferred, I think, but I did more laps that way and did a handful of laps the other way, so I don't really know.
For those that don't know, like Chuckwalla, you can, like you say, you can run both directions. On Alex's, like probably his fourth lap, we went out at lunch and just did counterclockwise just so he could see what it was like. His fourth lap, he was in the minute 48s to low 49s. So those that know that track out there will get a real appreciation of, one of the things, Alex, I say on every broadcast is when you get to the level that you're at, there's no such thing as a home track advantage. It's you can't go to Donington Park thinking, oh, I've got a home track advantage.
Yeah, not in World Superbike. There's 5 other Brits.
Yeah, 5 other Brits. Yeah, exactly right. But even going to certain places, it's everybody gets up to speed.
To be honest, do you know the only place I've ever felt like I really had a home advantage was going to Cadwell Park, and it was nothing to do with the track.
Yeah,
because it's to do with the fact that some people, because it's narrow, they sort of put themselves off riding there before they get there. Mm-hmm. And because I love the place so much, I felt I did have some advantage. But all the other tracks, the guys that are world championship level, that you give them a racetrack and they're straight down to real quick times within a handful of laps. So you don't really have too much advantage.
That psychology that you talk about going to a place where you're comfortable, but more than anything, knowing that somebody else is more uncomfortable, that's a psychology you can use whether it's raining or cold weather.
Exactly the same in the rain.
Yep.
So many people that talk themselves out of being fast in the rain before they've even properly tried it.
Correct.
I love the rain. I love the rain because I'm a bigger guy, so I had it always in my brain. What? Well, I can't.
We're getting into this again? Wait, go ahead. We're talking about your riding. Let's hear it.
No, that's fine.
Let's hear it.
Yeah, we need some tips for riding.
I'll give you a tip. Don't stand up in a canoe. How's that? There's a tip for you.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, actually, look, I rode Spa.
Greg rides. He actually rides really well. I mean, for when they start having weight classes, he'll be in front of his weight class. Yeah. And no, but honestly, he does.
Like boxing,
he rides really well.
It's like boxing, and we've got some weight categories.
When I did the BMW Boxer Cup series all those years ago, when they were doing some with MotoGP, that's what I wished. You remember, Richard Cooper, right? He was.
Yeah, I know.
We called him Mini Cooper. He was so light. We were at Catalunya one time on those Boxer Cup bikes, and I'm just bouncing the engine off the case, and he rode right around the outside of me, and there was nothing I could do. I was on the engine case, and I was like, "Can you please give us at least some stiffer springs?" But they wouldn't even allow us any spring changes on those bikes back then.
GW, and you went to Brno, but was that just to commentate that year, or did you actually ride there?
I rode at Brno. I commentated Brno in 2008 GP, but I went to Spa.
Yeah, I remember you
I went to Spa. That was during, I think there was a World Endurance round that weekend, and that was 4 days in the rain. That was phenomenal. And then, I had some really good experiences there. So it was a fun series to go around and ride, and at that slow speed, it suited my pace.
No, I make fun of you, but you actually did ride really well. But, anyways, look, in closing, I know for our first in-house guest, as far as that goes, I want to thank you, Alex, for just coming and hanging out, and I'll give you some extra shots on the golf course here a little bit later on.
You've never given me any extra shots. Just hold on, Alex. I've got to tell this story, okay?
Oh, here we go.
All right, there's a Jason Pridmore story for you, Alex. Your golf story. You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay,
I'm ready.
So Jason, I don't know if he does this any longer, but he can tend to get a little bit angry on a golf course. So we're at a place.
Not anymore.
Yeah, we're at a place called Atlanta Country Club, and they used to actually golf, have a professional PGA tournament there at one time. And we knew a guy who lived on the first hole, so we got there. Golf cart showed up. We had a caddy who literally had been there since the place opened, and there was this par 4. And it had this little kick to the right and a face-up bunker at about the 270-yard mark, and it would go to the right and then the green. And I unleashed this ball, boom, and we
hit a sprinkler.
No, is that what happened? Anyway, we thought it hit the face-up bunker, but when we went down and looked, it had made it past it and rolled within 70 yards of the hole. And the caddy said, "I've never seen anyone hit a ball that far except John Daly." And I was all, "Oh, this is great. This is great." and it was a par 4. I 7'd the hole. So I sat there and I knocked it over the green.
So what you're saying is you qualified on pole, but flung it down the road in the first turn. Is that what you're saying?
I've done that a lot. Don't worry about it.
No, but what I'm saying is, hold on. So I knock it over the green, knock it on, blah, 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 3-putt, whatever it was. And Jason was so pissed, he threw his own golf club. He was so mad at me. That's all I'm going to say. So
I don't know. But see, I probably was 10 yards behind you, and I probably made 6. So that's probably what. Behind. Yeah, maybe 20 yards behind. That's probably what pissed me off.
Or you birdied that hole. I remember distinctly.
Oh, I did?
Yeah, because you...
Please don't say that live.
Anyway, listen, Alex, thank you so much for being on the podcast. We have one more segment to go that we call Quick Shift. It's just a couple of topics. So if you want to stay on and listen and maybe add to some of these things, it'd be great if you're willing to sit around for a few more minutes.
Yeah,
let's do it. Here we go. So it's Quick Shift presented by ARAI. And you know, Jason and Alex, even though ARAI helmets meet all safety standards, they don't just build a helmet for safety alone. Comfort is huge, and a better fitting helmet is not only more comfortable, but protects you better with multiple available interior shapes and extensive range of interior liners and removable cheek pads. Your ARAI helmet can be customized to deliver the perfect fit for you. Visit ARAIAmericas.com for more information on tech, fit, and paint jobs. Big fan of the Nikki Hayden lineup myself, as I said last week. That's ARAIAmericas.com. All right, in this Quick Shift segment, we're going to throw out a couple of topics here, get about 60 seconds to talk about them. When that 60 seconds is up, I'm going to ring this bell. Are you ready, Jason Pridmore, to get this thing going? All right.
Get the first one going.
Honda presented Danny Pedrosa an RS250 RW and one of the RCVs on his way out. What are your thoughts on that?
Very cool. I mean, I think that he earned it. He's been there forever with Honda, and I think it's just a nice little parting gift that Honda gave him. He's probably going to jump on one of those after he gets off the KTM after the first test, maybe. I don't know. We'll see.
Well, that's
what I was going to say. Yeah. Great. He's known for Honda. I've done a lot for Honda. It'd be nice to see what he thinks of the KTM next year.
Yep, exactly. It'd be good for him. And along those lines, Greg, after seeing that, I saw the thing on Twitter that we talked about with John McGuiness, and I quote John McGuiness: "Fantastic, how it should be. I got to give a second-hand Africa Twin. He got given an Africa Twin 2 years ago by Honda, and now they want it back." And McGuiness did a few things for Honda, did he not?
Yeah, he certainly did for a lot of years too. So I don't know. From a PR standpoint, just give him the Africa Twin. Who cares? Just let him keep it. But
yeah, I agree. He's a top bloke, John.
He's a good guy, isn't he?
Yeah, let him keep the bike.
He's such a good guy, McGuiness. So obviously there's some bitterness that has gone on there after he had his accident at the Northwest a couple years ago. So glad he's all fit. He's fighting fit again and riding though. So that's good. I like it.
It's good. Hector Barbera to World Supersport on Team Toth. They've had multiple podiums on a 250 over the years. What do you think? Exciting news for World Supersport.
Well, what I saw from him in World Supersport with a bike that Kennan had just gotten off of was not very good. I don't know him at all, but I would hope that they're going to be able to get him a lot more comfortable on that Yamaha than he looked on the Kawasaki. Because Alex, he was a long way back. Yeah,
he struggled. He struggled on that, but coming off off a GP bike, GP style bike, so chassis onto a production bike can be difficult. So maybe he'll have a good year on the Yamaha, I believe, is it?
Yeah, it's a Yamaha. I think he had to think too he was going to come and dominate as well. Sure. All right, over the weekend, Greg, Chad Reed, your boy, took place in the Monza Rally Show in Italy. Told me it was a blast. Alex, would you ever want to do a rally?
Yeah, I'd want to do a rally. I wouldn't want to be a co-driver for you.
No, come on. It wouldn't be that bad, would it?
I don't trust you.
I just took a bunch of people for 2-ups. Greg's been 2-up with me, Greg.
Fairness, you were solid. You were solid.
That's all right.
I'll be faster though.
Yeah, as usual. Well, it depends who you have on the back.
Well, Chad,
Greg on the back, you definitely would be faster than me. All right, Chad, what?
We're talking about rally cars. We're not talking about on the back, all right? So,
I know.
Valentino won a bunch of races in that rally, by the way, in one of those classes. And I did have a chance to text with Chad, and he said he really enjoyed it, and he's definitely wants to go back. Whether he goes full time or not, I don't think Chad's done in motorcycle racing just yet. But I'm trying to coax Chad Reed into road racing, but he's pretty resistant. I know he loves it a lot, but he's pretty resistant.
That'd be awesome.
It would be awesome. And MotoGP. Chad Reed follows MotoGP like crazy. He loves it. So wouldn't be surprised to see him out on the track.
No, it'd be good. All right, so on Watch MotoGP on BT Sports. All right, that's actually a title. Watch MotoGP on BT Sports. Twitter, they posted a clip of Jorge Lorenzo talking about the possibility of retirement at one point. I want to play you guys the clip, and I want to get your comments. So here's Jorge on Watch MotoGP on BT Sports Twitter.
It was, I was almost like in a little depression because, you know, when I was seeing the possibility to retire in my head, I was getting depressed, no? Normally when I imagine my retirement, in some way I was feeling happy, no? And relief, because I will not feel anymore the pressure and I will not get injured anymore. But really, I didn't expect that when I just started feeling this possibility of retirement, I was getting depressed. And it was like that, no? It was very close for the retirement. It's true that I have another possibility that was going in the satellite team Yamaha. With Yamaha. But it was a good option, but was not the option I wanted.
Jason, you've been obviously faced with retirement. You have retired. Alex, I don't know if you've ever even had an opportunity to think about it, but, you know, both of you guys, what do you think about the honesty that Jorge's talking about in that little soundbite?
Yeah, I think it's really nice that he's being so honest. And if you watch how he rode in the middle of the year, winning them 3 races on the Ducati and dominating in Mugello, it's quite clear that he's nowhere near ready to retire. It's just other circumstances where he thought he might not be able to get a ride. And yeah, you know, when you do retire, ideally it's when you've had enough from racing. I'm sure Pedrosa's not thinking the same as Lorenzo. I think he's about ready to be finished, and you could see it on track, whereas Jorge still has a lot to give, I think. I think it's going to be great to watch him next year on the Honda.
I think he's going to be amazing on the Honda. You're right. I think the thing that's interesting is you always seem to see Lorenzo talking about those pre-race jitters and how horrible it is for that 5 minutes when you're sitting on the grid and there's so much uncertainty. And he talked about the idea of the thing he liked was the idea, Greg, of not getting injured anymore. I feel like we're at a stage in racing right now where the safety of our sport's only going to continue to get better. And we don't see those big injuries like we used to see so often. So, no, losing him would have been a true shame, especially with his form in mid-season, like you said. So I love the honesty as well. And he's definitely not ready to go anywhere.
No, and in our sport, we have so much excitement. And if you do have the nerves, but actually them nerves are part of the reason why we love it. And when you take that away, there's a big hole to fill. And I'm sure that, you know, if he doesn't know he didn't know what he was going to do, it can certainly make him feel a bit different.
Agreed.
Yeah, retirement for athletes at any level can be interesting, especially when you're the man or the woman for so many years, and then all of a sudden you're faced with retirement and the phone stops ringing and you stop having people look after you. I mean, it's a shift. Not saying that everyone has that ego and needs that, but it is a feed that you get, and that when it goes away, it definitely plays a toll on you on some level. So it's something getting used to. So I can definitely see where it would be, you know, the thought of retirement can get pretty depressing on one hand, but then the excitement of not having to deal with the pressure. And I love the fact that he said that, you know, hey, the idea that I'm not going to get injured anymore sounds pretty good.
Yeah,
you know?
For sure. No, exactly.
Yeah, and he is a guy, to be honest, that seems to pick up injuries when he does crash.
He does. He doesn't fall very often, but when he does. So yeah.
Yeah, we know a couple racers that bounce off the asphalt no problem, you know, like a rubber ball, but some guys just hit the deck and break easy, and it's just kind of the way it is. But all right, well, that's going to do it for us on the Greg's Garage Pod with co-host Jason Pridmore. Thank you so much, Alex Lowe's, for joining us on this podcast and being our first live guest ever. We certainly appreciate all the conversation and the insight.
No problem. Thanks for having me, guys.
All right, make sure if you have any questions for us that you want us to bring up on the podcast, any guests you'd like to have us on, whatever, you can always find Jason and I on social media. And this podcast is available on Apple Pod. It's available on Spotify, on Google Play. And, of course, you can always follow us on Podbean, where it's located. Thanks for joining us. And Jason and I will talk to you next time.